many young professional doesn't know. And believe me, Sandeep and I had been doing a bit of CFO consulting before, and we were quite amazed and surprised at the kind of roles that they were, right? So it was absolutely phenomenal for us to, kind of understand that from their perspective. It became very real for us, and we kind of saw that then it becomes applicable to a finance professional as well. It also becomes applicable to a lot of people who are, and as we released the book, we were amazed at the non-finance professionals who were trying to make things out of it, right? So we were invited by a group of orthopedicians to address them, to say, how will a hospital be able to run better, right? And things like that. But a fundamental question to ask by anybody is, why should I actually learn from others' experiences, right? Because there is this conundrum about, us wanting to be ourselves versus us trying to emulate others, right? And how do you address that? What I realized, at least Sandeep and I in our journey, and which we have captured in what we call as extra shots in the book, is that we saw our lives transform, right? Many people tell us now when they talk to us, they feel as if they are talking to 7 different people, which is good and bad in a way, because all these experiences come together. But I'm reminded about what it has been told in psychology of money, right? That the fact of the matter is that our experiences in the world is 0.00002% of what actually happens, but that kind of frames 98% of our worldview, right? And if you put that into your practice, the fact is, in our own lives, we will never be able to get all those experiences wholesome, right? So we are going to be ourselves, but then what if we can get experience from a learned experience, learned life, right? And then pick up life lessons, see how it applies to us in our own personal way, right? And many times the story is the anecdote. So if you see the book, there is a lot of anecdotes out there. Many times the story anecdotes are because that may apply to you in a different context. So every reader will experience it in a very different way. And what has been surprising is every reader comes and says me a different CFO whose lesson they loved, and then I'm able to guess what is the kind of challenge they are currently facing, right? Having gone through it, right? So that's broadly about the journey. At the end of it, we feel that it's for a finance professional, non-finance professional, anybody who wants to pick up life lessons. Personally, for Sandeep and me, it has been an evolution. Both of us are in very, very different careers than when we started this. Both of us are able to handle a bit of stress situation and look at them as opportunities, and do a lot more learning from these CFOs. And the lucky part for us is that we continue to engage with them, we continue to learn, and we continue to evolve. And through these conversations, what we try to do is also get you some tidbits beyond that which has been covered in the book, right? So I look forward to the questions, and thank you all again for joining in today. Very excited. Always it's exciting to share with people, learn from them, and then also give our perspective where applicable. Over to you, Sandeep.
Just I'll go straight to questions. There's one thing, Latha, I'm seeing the chat messages here. Just wanted to let everybody know that there is a lot of content from the book available on cfoniti.com as well. So just so you know, the intent of the entire book is just to make sure that more and more people get to learn some of the stuff that we have learned in person with people of this caliber. So please feel free to, go through the website, learn on your own. You don't have to buy the book, just so you know, right? There is no need. If you don't want to, go ahead. All we want, there is only one single point agenda, and single point agenda is that whether it is a young professional or whether it is whether it is a seasoned professional, if you are looking to say, I want to have a successful career in finance, maybe someday become a CFO, what are the key tenets that you need to learn? That is one. And second is, just from a, this, I would say that this book is also a bit of a self-help book. So, pick up some elements from what these people have experienced in their lives and maybe implement one of them in your own life and see success. And that is all, that is what I would define as success for us as authors. I'll go to the questions straight away.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for those words, both of you. The first question that I want to ask is, I know you have, separate sections that call out where it had actually touched you or where exactly you felt a personal connect to certain aspects that were called out by each of the CFOs. But if there's always those one or two compelling things that you took back and you really implemented it and it's made a sea view change in your life, what would you call that as? It can be just one or two things. I know we learn a lot when we meet a leader, but there's always that one or two things that stay with us and that would have changed things drastically. Is there something that you want to call out, Pramod and Sandeep?
I'll get started. So, there is one thing that I want to call out, and I find it quite encouraging, honestly. So, most of our CFOs, in fact, all of our CFOs, they come from humble backgrounds. They come from largely middle-class backgrounds who started with not much. It's not like there was a huge family background behind them, and they have built their careers. They have succeeded in life purely on the basis of their hard work and their perseverance. And some people, and I know I come from humble background myself. I really like that fact. And when you go through their journeys, you realize that they have throughout their lives, despite the fact of not having a huge backing, taken the kind of risks that they have, changed careers so many times. That I found to be extremely encouraging, and that I think that it is encouraging to people like me. And then in the past 3 years, I left a corporate job, started my own startup. And that point of time, there was definitely something in the back of my mind which says, and you will see some of these elements in the book, is that if there is a risk to be taken, don't, if you think the rewards are there, just go ahead and do it. So I think the fact that all of them come from humble backgrounds and have risen fast in their life and taken the kind of risk that they have is extremely encouraging. And all the people that are there in this call, that would be a big takeaway. In terms of one or two anecdotes or things that I have personally implemented in my life, I'll give you just one example to you, and I'll leave it to Pramod to give more. Is when we did our discussion with the L&T CFO, Mr. Shankar Raman. We typically they have very busy calendars, so they would give us 60 minutes. We went into his office, we sat down, we spent almost 3 hours with him, in 3 different sessions in his office. And what we realized at the end of, back end of the 3 hours is that he did not bring his mobile phone into the meeting at any point of time. And it did not take any calls during the period that he's speaking to. A person who is managing, 2,000 different projects, evaluating 2,000 different projects at any point of time, he didn't bother bringing in mobile phone. And we asked him, right, what is the reason? Everybody is distracted. And then he said one simple thing, that I committed my time to you. And if I do not give you my full attention, that would be injustice to you. And if I didn't want to do that, I should have never given you my time. If there is something which is important enough, there are enough number of people to let me know. And that one thing basically, and we have realized these 2 things that these CFOs do. One, they easily put you at ease the moment you meet them. So, they feel you feel that, yes, you have known them for some time. And second is the kind of focus, the attention that you get for that 60 minutes, 90 minutes, it makes you feel valuable. It makes you feel that, yes, I matter to this person. And I think they do this to every single person that interacts with them. And that, I believe, is one of the, key things that now when I walk into a meeting, when I do a meeting, I never ever, I just put my phone on silent. I know that if the news is important enough, it will reach me. People, if time is committed, it is important, and we should give them the necessary attention. I mean, just one example of something that I saw and found it extremely, extremely encouraging.
Pramod? So Sandeep, that's very valuable, right? Because in today's world, deep listening skills is something that we are kind of going away from, not knowingly, but even unknowingly, as you said, our attention span has gone very low. We get distracted very easily, and sometimes and deep listening is such an important aspect as we aspire to get into the C-suite roles. We aspire to mentor and coach a lot of people. So that's a very profound example, and I think there's a lot for us to think about that. Thank you for that. Over to you, Pramod, to share from your side.
I think while there are key takeaways in each chapter that we have listed out, one thing which is not in the chapter, but really when I reflect back is, we really learned not to overthink things. Sometimes overthinking has its own set of problems, right? And all of this listening and overthinking are together kind of connected. So how did these leaders become leaders? See, what they did is, whenever they were thrown a challenge or a new opportunity, they didn't overthink. They picked up that opportunity. They are lifelong learners. They learned. As a part of it, what they ended up doing was, they created capabilities for themselves that were unique. Somebody was noticing and again offered them a better and a more higher role for which they told a yes. Right? Many of us, at least I can reflect on myself. Many times when we are offered roles that we feel we are not as paced with, what we end up doing is think and kind of kill the hell out of it, but it's really not necessary. So all of these leaders don't overthink. Not that they are not strategic, but they don't overthink, right? That's the first thing that I think that stood out for me. And what really happened is, as I said, every leader brings to you something which you then apply to a situation and it becomes more real. And let me give you an example, for instance, to make it more real. So, publishing, let me tell you, is a very, I would say, a process which has a lot of perseverance, right? It goes through its own highs, lows, and when you really think the book is going to be out in 3 months, it takes 3 years, right? So there was a point in time where Sandeep and I were working by the day and doing by the night and weekend, and we weren't as fast. There was response time from the CFOs, and we got a mail from the CFO, just saying that, boss, these are things that are not happening. In a way, saying that if you don't fasten up things here, I am going to pull out, kind of stuff, right? And we were 1 year down the thing. We had committed the book and all of it. Now, normally, by that time, we had finished all the interviews. So the book was in our head, actually, but it was over 2,000 pages and some 100+ hours of, script, right? But normally what we would have thought is, yaar, ab kya kare, let him go, kind of stuff. But the first thing that struck us then is that, okay, never waste a crisis, right? That's what Srini had told us. Never ever waste a crisis. Crisis is an opportunity for you to improve. So we rethought the entire strategy. We put in people who are transcribers. We put in a team together who will do certain stuff. We started managing our time better, and we used to then travel together and discuss that, use that time. So that every crisis, these leaders saw it as an opportunity, and in fact, the need for existence, right? So if I don't have a crisis at my work, I feel very uncomfortable, because then I start questioning, I'm not getting challenges enough. So that perspective of seeking happiness in crisis rather than being gloomy because there is a crisis came up, right? So when that thing came up, that okay, the book stops. And then, I remember Mr. Sushil Agarwal saying that koshish karne walon ki kabhi haar nahi hoti, right? And that is in fact one key takeaway, which kind of comes in again here, that if we try, we were sure the book will get published. As I said, it's like a 12-feet test in an airline that comes, and you kind of go with a leap of faith, right? One more thing that we were doing maybe not right was, we wanted every page, every word to be right? And we were over planning it, and doing it. And that's where Raghava had told, sometimes fire, aim is better than aim, fire. Right? That means that sometimes you need to fire, and then, if things go wrong, you kind of replan and then do the thing again, right? So we started doing pages. What we realized is, if we hadn't done that, it would have been 4 more years before we got the book, right? Because what happened is, once we had given it for a pre-read to the CFOs, they had their point of view. Then we had few pre-readers, they had their point of view. By getting it out early through this approach, right, helped us to evolve it, right? And then make it faster. And in every work we do nowadays, and you would have seen that for the prep also, Latha, we follow that policy everywhere. We say, okay, let's go with the flow, let's see how it happens, and then we plan again, right? The one thing which we never forget and we always do is what Shankar Raman had told. He told, when you are out for a deer hunt, prepare as if you are going to hunt a tiger. Right? That means there is fire aim, but in doing that execution, plan your execution well. Don't plan what to execute, but plan how to execute very, very well. Right? So those are some of the nuggets. As I said, it is for all of us to learn from the leaders these nuggets. And as the situation throws up, what I understand is, as the situation comes by, it has become natural for us to look into that situation and think that, okay, maybe we need to do it this way, right? So you remain you apply your kind of knowledge that you acquired, but there is just so much more that we continue to learn each day from these leaders, and in fact the leaders are.
Thank you, Pramod. So, few notes that I have written down as one: crisis is opportunity. So that's many a times, even I think that most of us are at work because, or we have a job because there's some kind of crisis and we are able to solve it. If things are all fine, I think most of us wouldn't even have our jobs, because to run the daily show, the team can do it themselves, right? Plan to execute well. Yes, as you said, sometimes certain ideas are great, they're awesome, but where most ideas have failed is that they've not been executed well. That also needs as much thought process as much as we put together the idea or we put together the plan. And the last one that you said was, move faster. This comes back to be agile, right? The agility part of the world. Be agile, fail faster, or make more iterations so that there's progress happening rather than go big bang towards the end. So thanks. Those were very useful insights. I think those are learnings that we will also take back. Um, Whenever we refer to the title of a CFO, or whenever we think of the CFO,
there are questions being asked in the chat window, so let's just make sure that some point of time we pick them up. Happy to
sure.
answer. Yeah. Okay, go on.
Sure.
Please. Go on.
Let's then pick a question that's called out here. So one of the aspects, Ajay Mahagovind has asked, what do you think are the connecting dots between that we as a student should plot in the journey to achieve what you have achieved? One of you want to pick this up?
Yeah, so I would, rather than saying what we have achieved, because honestly, we are students, we haven't achieved much in our lives, we are still working. So I would say, let us talk about the 6 CFOs that we have covered and what they have achieved in their lives, and only a few pointers, and I'll try and keep the answers very short so that we can cover as many questions as possible. Right. So as a student, and every single CFO, we ask the same question: what is it that as a student or early stage professional you should do that you can also achieve the kind of success that you actually merit, and our CFOs achieved? And there are only 3-4 things that they mentioned, right? So one thing that they mentioned was, and is very important, and it is also from one of the CFOs who's not covered in the book, that you have to be, when it comes to pure knowledge, when it comes to subject matter expertise, you have to be in 0.01% in at least one area in your career. You don't have to be a master of all trades, and you can't be. It is not possible. But at least in one area, it doesn't matter whether it's cash. I know there are mostly chartered accountants here, so whether it is taxation, whether any one area, you have to make sure that you are an expert in that area, and people come to you for your expertise. The second thing that is very important and that people need to understand, and I will cover this more as we go along in the questions, Latha, is the ability to modify your skill set according to changing market conditions. And this is very important to young professionals. I'll tell you why. HUL today has, out of its 500 plus finance employees, more than 70% of them are either employees with core skills, which has to do with data analytics, digital data transformation, or deep learning, rather than to do with actual hardcore finance. These are people. So what is happening is that the basic functions are getting automated, and it is more about analytics, it is more about digitization, deep learning, the 3 Ds, as Kaushik likes to call, right? So if you are a finance professional today, it is not enough, not enough to say, okay, I am very good at what I learned in my CA plus another 4 or 5 years of experience. Maybe that's not enough, right? So you then need to be looking at what are the additional, skills that I need to learn to actually adapt to the new environment. The CFO office, the chief financial officer himself has seen significant transformation, like 360-degree transformation in the past 10 to 15 years. And you want to be successful, look for what you want to do 5 years hence and prepare for that now, rather than saying, okay, what happens to my next promotion? And that is where the third point comes. A lot of advice that the CFOs gave was plan for the career you want to have and not the one you have right now. Right. So what they are saying is that, Sandeep, don't worry about your next promotion. Don't worry about, the next hike that you are going to get in December. Think about what is it that you really want to do and run after that. And I know it is a very cliched term. Everybody says that, but we see it in their own lives, and we see the way they behave. Right. Someone like Srinivas from HUL changed, intra-company careers like 9 times before he went to the position, the CFO position. So that is the third thing I would like to say. One, have some core hardcore skills and be the best in it. Second, keep on learning and adapt to, understand what is happening to the finance function, adapt to that, learn more skills, be always, at the cutting edge of what you're doing. The third thing is very simple, is on an overall basis, there is no shortcut. There isn't any, there isn't any mantra, honestly speaking. You just take opportunities, say yes more than you say no, and build up your career as you go along. So that's an advice. That's the advice that CFOs have given for young financial professionals.
Thank you, Sandeep. Pramod, do you have anything to add, or can I move on to the next question?
I think you can move on, Latha. We'll pick up more.
Okay. So the next question that I had in mind was, whenever we hear the term CFO, whenever we think of CFOs, we always think of them as very serious professionals who are always juggling with numbers, who are always there to say a no, right? Because and they say it for a reason, but then people who sit on the other side waiting to get their projects approved find them to be very tough ringmasters. So I just wanted to know, as a part of this entire journey where you spend sufficient time interviewing them, getting to know them, was there a lighter side of them, or the thought that we have is still relevant? Any funny anecdotes that come to your mind, or any light incidents?
So, Latha, I'll address the 2 questions here, right? I know the question is on the lighter side. So there has been many lighter sides, and like every movie, there are behind the scenes that are very interesting, which we will talk about. But this first perspective of CFO are there to tell a no. What we have seen is, if you are a person who likes to tell a no for everything, or rather as seen as a control guy, you actually have lower probability to make it to the CFO, right? And let me tell you, as part of this entire CFO Niti book, we also spoke to CEOs either before or after writing the book. And one thing we asked is, how do you look at a CFO from your lens, right? From a CEO lens. And they said there are 2 kinds of finance professional. One that controls the business, and the second one which enables the growth of the business, right? And it is the person who is on the second side who enable the growth of the business who are actually the most probable candidate who make it to the CFO, right? And what is more important is that is now part of the selection criteria, right? They don't say they say very clearly, but this is one of the key selection areas, or how much you have contributed to the growth of the area. So for the aspiring CFO, if they are either on this meeting or seeing it online, it is much higher probable for you to make it to the CFO by contributing to the growth of the kind of this entire company, right? And that has been truly there. In each of these CFOs have at least contributed to 10x plus growth of their companies, right? On the fun side, we had like too many fun moments. In fact, some of them have been captured in the book. But all of this, there is a CFO who wanted to be a fashion designer, right? And if you see the way he dresses, and he kind of fulfilled that aspire by being in a company and running that company as well of fashion designer, right? So that is one part. Second, many CFOs have been cricketer, and they have joked about that entire journey on how they ended up being here, right? All of them are actually quite easy to go with, right? I mean, this entire serious notion or note is somehow a perception that is built around. See, they are responsible. There is a fiduciary relationship that is there with the numbers. So they are not going to say you yes everywhere, and you don't want your CFO to say a yes everywhere. If that is the thing, actually there is a bigger trouble out there, right? So what we need to understand is there is a lot of fun side in the CFO. If you actually look through the pictures that are there, you can see them, holidaying, a lot of them having a lot of passions around music, farming, whatnot. I mean, they are really having a lot of fun. And one of the reasons what we realized is that is also because they actually enjoy the journey and not the destination, right? And Shini had told that you cannot have control over how your day ends, but you can always control how your day begins, right? And they are a lot of fun, leaders as well, and the people who would have worked with them would know that as well, right? So over to you back, Latha. I hope I answered your question broadly, but you have to actually experience the fun rather than me describing it. There's a lot of fun out there.
So I'll pick up one question here from, it's a very important question to answer, and I would love to take this. The question is, even if the CEO is there, what is stopping the CFO from taking a leading role in everything that the CEO does? How do you see the difference between the roles, and do you think the CFO is a natural number 2 in the company and heir to the CEO? I've tapped a response, but I would like to explain, and this is very important because we asked this question to all our CFOs. The answer is very, very clear. The CFO office at least 15, 20 years back used to be what you call as the control function, right? It used to report, it used to audit, and it used to basically act as a guard dog to everything that went on in the organization. What has happened is, at least in the past 5 to 7 years, right? And this was applicable, and please understand, right? I'm not talking about startups. I'm not talking about small companies. I'm talking about 100,000 crore companies. These companies have basically transformed to a situation where business and finance now go hand in hand. And, to take the example of Amazon India, the Raghava Rao, the CFO, basically talks about, Latha, you may have read it, about the fly on the wall test. So what he says is that if you are sitting in a conference room, and if there is a fly on the wall should not be able to, after hearing the conversation, should not be able to tell who is from the finance department and who is from the business department, right? And that is the kind of seamless integration. And Amazon anyways works on the concept of pods. Each pod basically is a self-sufficient, self-contained entity, wherein you have got somebody from finance acting. Finance is no longer someone who says yes or no, or someone who reports. All of those functions obviously are there. Some of them are automated, but mostly finance is responsible for now things like, how do we improve customer satisfaction? How do we go for growth? How do we make sure that we are building our finance function for next 5 years? And there is a much longer example Raghava has taken. In the interest of time, I will not cover the entire thing, but he talks about how do they calculate shipping costs, and how does that factor in to make sure that customer is satisfied, even if it means there is a short-term hit on finances, because the long-term customer lifetime value enhances because of short-term decisions. I'll not get into that, but the simple answer to all my colleagues here is that no, the CFO doesn't play a subordinate role anymore. He's a partner, and that is why you see a lot more CFOs becoming CEOs now, because they serve a very important role. I was speaking, I come from the startup world. I was speaking to one of the largest buy now, pay later companies, a $40 billion startup. And he told me the order of importance in the company now is the chief technology officer and the chief financial officer, then him, and then everybody else. So the CEO isn't in their organization. The CEO isn't the most important person. It is a technology guy who's building the platform. It is a finance guy who's managing finances and fundraising. That is the most important. And this is a $40 billion organization. That's how organizations have transformed. And all of you here should look at, your next 10 years with that perspective.
And is it also a fair aspect to understand that irrespective of whichever C-suite role that you are in, a little bit of a bent into the finance aspects always does help, right? Because that helps you better appreciate what the CFO is trying to say and work through in a seamless manner rather than just be a person who's presenting things and expecting the CFO to say a yes or a no. I think that's for the rest of the professionals who are looking at growing in the other fields into a C-suite role as well. So thanks Sandeep, and for addressing that important question. The next one that I wanted to understand was while we read your book, we also we did see that you've tried to accommodate a variety of personas. When I say that, you've tried picking people from different industries. The automobile industry. You've looked at conglomerates which are across multiple sectors, like the Aditya Birla. But then we saw that a couple of personas were missing, right? Like a little bit of diversity in terms of gender would have helped. Are you looking at? Was there a reason why we went only with the India sector largely, and are we looking at and not the international sector? Could you throw a little bit of light around that?
Pramod, I'll start and you can pick up. So the answer is very simply, Latha. We had spent quite a bit of time, almost 6 months, waiting for a female CFO to come in, and we reached out to literally everyone. It is our misfortune that we were not able to have enough diversity in terms of. So we have tried to create diversity in terms of industry, in terms of profiles, in terms of the kind of people that we interacted with for the benefit of our audience. But yes, it is absolutely it is a matter of we are a little let down ourselves that we could not have a female CFO in the book. And in the next edition that we will do, we will not write the book unless we can get a female CFO to be at least 20% representation is there. So that is the answer to the first question that you had, right? And apart from that, we have focused on India. The book is CFO Niti, just like Chanakya Niti, and it is meant for Indian audience. Let's be honest, right? And in the future, I mean, honestly speaking, the kind of country that we are, the kind of growth we have seen, and the kind of transformation that we have seen, I think that if somebody who's an international financial professional, they should be reading our book instead of other way around. I'm being a bit brash saying that, but honestly, that is the case, right? India, when it comes to finance, and India, when it comes to transformation in the finance sector, beats literally any other country out there. And that's a fact, right? So there is no doubt. And that is why, obviously we are Indians, and we wanted to cover this. In the future, yes, there will be a more global angle to some of these conversations. We'll try and cover that. But yes, the book is focused on India as a country and finance professionals, Indian finance professionals as of now.
So you did mention out there that in the next edition or the next series that you're looking at, right? So have you folks already teamed up for your next book? Is that something that's planned around similar lines, or is that a different, topic, or is it too early for me to ask this question?
It took us 3 years to compile and write this book. So too early, I guess.
Okay.
We also have the audience in place, which means basically the kind of people that we are going to talk to. But yes, anything beyond that is, I mean, unfortunately, because of COVID, we are unable to sit together as authors and write down. And, just so you know, we spent more than 30 days traveling, meeting all the CFOs when we wrote the book. And obviously, whatever we do, that personal touch is actually important. So hopefully with COVID situation improving, we'll be able to pick that up now.
I understand. I'm going to now pick a question from what the people had sent us during the time of registration. So I don't know if I can combine these two questions. One is about with Industry 4.0, how does the role of a CFO kind of change? And if I could add one more part to it, with the COVID aspect of things, and in this post-COVID era, does that have any impact, or is there something that the CFOs should keep in mind, or the budding CFOs should keep in mind as they look at getting into this role? So just wanted to combine these two aspects and ask.
I think, Latha, this industry 4.0, and in fact, this entire bent on the industry itself, so combining industry and technology. So let's handle each one separately. If you look at the CFO, one of the unique aspects you see is their industry experience, right? So if you look at Kaushik, he has been throughout in the steel industry, right? In fact, he's born and brought up in a steel town as well, right? Shankar Raman has been in the infra industry, right? Sheni and Raghava have spent most of their time in the CPG industry, so either in the e-commerce space or in the the actual B2C kind of business, right? So industry, it is very important. It kind of connects back that the business aspect or the understanding the business aspect is primacy in a CFO role, right? It's no longer a control. It's about understanding that well. And if that industry is evolving, these people are ahead of the curve. And one of the reasons for that is by very nature, they are lifelong learners, right? And I was speaking to a few of them over the past few weeks as well, and they were learning something else now, right? They were talking about ESG, or if there is something on the EV side, there is something happening on the tech side. All of that is taken, right? So all of this is taken in perspective. If you look at the CFO role itself, right, and whether it has evolved after COVID, and in fact, we had the first-hand experience of talking to few of them as we were doing the final read, and hence the interactions increased with the CFO. I think while there are other aspects that are the business aspect, going concern concept, which is all there, whether the business will run tomorrow or not, whether the cash flows are okay or not, and all of it, I think two things stood out, right? COVID was a crisis. Again, they saw it. Everybody expanded opportunity. But second aspect, which and we talked about why crisis is an opportunity, right? And they bring this a strange sense of calmness, which we say that how is it? I mean, it's not that they don't care, but they are so prepared that they know what is going to happen, right? So their experience lends them to that calmness. But a more important aspect, in my view, Latha, was the people aspect, that they are so naturally, glued to, right? So they are very, very people-focused people. In fact, if you think about it, CFOs only, in our experience, spend 10 to 15% on control activity, but they are 100% responsible for that. Unless you have a good team, you can't do that. When Sandeep and I went, the kind of warmth that we felt was absolutely phenomenal. So in all the CFOs, without exception, had put people first, right, in their entire COVID thing. So, this entire thing around having an impact on your people, doing well for your people is very, very important for any CXO role, and CFO is no exception to that. And we saw that firsthand happening. How did they care for their people? How did they care for their vendors over short-term business? There were numerous examples that were there, which were out in the media as well, which were spoken about.
Thank you, Pramod. So that also brings back the aspect that about the empathy side that they have for people, right? And again, in today's world, empathy seems to be another very important aspect that every leader needs to have, all the more with COVID and the kind of tough situations that each of them are dealing. It's not the same for everyone, though we have people coming back to work and reporting to work from home as well. We see that each of one is dealing with different situations, and empathy plays such a huge factor in keeping them together and keeping them motivated as well. So that's another takeaway for those of you who aspire to be leaders in any industry, in any role as such. Again, for all of those who've joined the conversation recently, please keep your questions coming on to the chat box. We would like to take the questions with the authors as it keeps coming in. One aspect that I wanted to understand was while you had 6 CFOs that you had interviewed, and there are specific insights. Are there any common themes that you did see was running across all of their minds? Any common principles or themes which you felt was across all 6 of them you spoke to, or maybe 5 out of the 6 of them you spoke to? Do you want to throw a bit of light around that? Sandeep, do you want to get started?
Yeah. I'm just trying to actually pull up my, yeah. So, I was trying to pull up some of the comments that I had noted for this question, right? And I'll keep it pointed. And, it is an important question to answer because people keep on asking me that what is the commonality you find, right? And, give me that 5 points where you say, okay, fine. This is the reason why these people are what they are, and this is why they have been successful finance professionals. We did find, I'll tell you, we did find some, and I'll keep it very grounded and very real, right? I'll not talk about broad topics. I keep it very grounded and very real. I'll tell you a few things that we found very common, common among the CEOs. And I'm going to post this right here in the chat window also, that people can basically read it as well. Let me just try and do that. I'm not able to. Yeah, I've done that. So I have posted. I'm sorry, just 1 second. Yeah, and yeah. So I posted the points as well. Some of the points that we found was, one is, early romance with numbers and, likeness for the overall finance. So some of these people, as Pramod mentioned, right, had different career aspirations. But by the time they were like in the 18 to 20-year age, they were very much in love with finance as a topic, right? And then they had excellent careers. So, I would be remiss to say that, these were people who they had very good careers. So whether they were chartered accountants or MBAs or, any of these, they have had very good careers. They were early boomers is how I put it, especially when it comes to the topic that they really liked in life, which was finance. Right? That is one. The second thing that I will tell you is that all of these people have played, and Pramod, support me on this, right? If I'm going wrong, right? At some level, they have played a cash function role in the organization, managed cash at some level, right? Whether it is for liquidity, whether it is fundraising, whether it's something else, right? They have managed cash at some point of time and have got a high familiarity with the nuts and bolts of the finance function, how do organizations function. So that is the second thing that we found was very important. Then coming to some of the other, slightly softer topics, right? What we found was that all of them basically, deeply believe in the concept of action, right? So it's not like, you talk, and all of them are very clear. They're very regimented towards saying, yes, we will not indulge in overthinking, and we'll go ahead and we'll do something if it aligns with either our objectives or with the organization's objectives. And finally, one thing that I leave you, the one thought that you leave with is that they had a very, all of these people are very well managed when it comes to their time, right? Very, very well managed when it comes to their time. And that is why they are able to manage all the work that they do. All of them have got very strong early morning regimented routines. Unfortunately, I'm still not a morning person, despite having learned that it really is important. Still not a morning person, but I can tell you that most of them, wake up early, have a regimented morning routine, clear up a lot of tasks even before they start their day in the 9 a.m. in the morning. So maybe some of these things, I found that very, very common, among the CFOs.
Thank you for that, Sandeep. And I'm going to pick a couple of questions that have come in here. One is, do we know what percentage of the CFO's time gets spent on compliance? Is that something that you got to ask them?
So I'll tell you, it's around 10 to 15%, right? It's about compliance and controllership. And that's what I alluded to when I said that they have to spend 10 to 15% of their time on controls, compliance, and all of it. And remaining 15-20% is business aspect that are routine, and 60% are ad hoc business aspects. So this is the pie chart if you want to draw, right? But the fact of the matter is they are 100% responsible for compliance. It's hygiene, so they need to have very, very strong hands who they can depend upon. They need to understand the risk metrics well and all of it, right? And that is important, right? So I will go really quick on 2-3 questions I noted and in the chat box, right? So that we cover more and more. I know we are going top of the hour. The one thing was the relationship between CEO and CFO, right? In a simple way, we answer it's the same as husband and wife, right? So they have their own bits of tips, fights. They may not agree with each other, right? But they may have their points of view. But at the end of the day, sometimes they agree to agree. They sometimes agree to disagree. It's always not good that they agree for everything, right? But that's the typical way, and they have a very cordial and loving relationship as such, right? So that's the short answer to it. Right. On the second is the CFO, a natural hat to the CEO, and that came up here as well. Right. I would say the way I have looked at it, and I would recommend, we are not here only for CFO Niti. There are a lot of other interesting books, both Sandeep and I have been fortunate to read our experience. One of them is The Outsiders. Right. I would strongly recommend everybody to have a look at that book, The Outsiders. It's about 8 CEOs who created the most wealth for their shareholders, right? And one fundamental thing that The Outsider says, it's an international bestseller, is that the CEO's primary role is cash allocation, right? There are 3 ways that you can raise cash and 5 ways you can deploy cash, right? And they gave with example how these 3 ways and these 5 ways are the best thing, are the best thing that can be done for a wealth creation opportunity, and a very real book, right? Now, if you think about that, right, and then you would understand why I would say that maybe a CFO is better placed than many others, right? Now, today it depends on the kind of company, but I would say that CFOs are better placed to be the head of the as the CEO in a product company. That may be a chief product officer and CTO as well. But the CFO, if understands the industry well, is again well placed to be the head, right? And if you look at, there are multiple examples where this has happened and they have done phenomenally well, right? And many of the large, unique marquee names in India have followed that model, right? So those were a couple of questions I picked up. The third was around the time management, which was there around, I think, see, there are always going to be priorities that are going to come. For that, I would recommend a couple of, again, books. The 4-Hour Work Week, which is a beautiful book by Tim Ferriss. And then Getting Things Done, again, the GTD method. So we follow it to the core. What is a 2-minute activity, get it done then, and then kind of move on, right? So, and we found that the CFOs had a regimented routine. And as I said, if there is a crisis, they go and handle that crisis. For the routine, they have somebody to do stuff, right? And we pretty much followed that when we put in a team together to get a lot of things done, right? That was very quick one. I think we are through the questions. So over to you, Latha. Yeah.
I'm also going to, I know we are just 5 minutes around the time. I'm also going to pick one more question that is coming from the list that was sent across. Why are finance professionals perceived as a necessary evil for the decision making within the organization? I think you did touch upon most of the aspects as you spoke, but is there anything more that either of you want to add on here?
So we'll try and answer that question. They are. I mean, if I'll put it very simply, right? If your organization is in a situation, whether you own an organization, whether you are a part of an organization, right? If you are in a situation where finance professionals are seen, and this is typically what happens, right? HR professionals are seen as enemies, finance professionals are seen as enemies. It happens everywhere. It has happened with me. It has happened with everybody else, right? The fact is that, those perceptions, honestly, kind of the demarcation, the line between all these functions is kind of blurring, right? And a lot of these people, a lot of us are cross-functional professionals now. And that is where I'll put it very simply. Yes, it is there. Yes, it in about 60 to 70% organizations, there is still there. And the simple reason is that I would, and I know I may get some brickbats for this, but I'd put it very simply, right? And that is the concept of listening to what they are saying. You don't have to accept what a business says. A business will come and they will always ask you for more funds. They will say, yes, every single project that I pick up is fantastic. It is blockbuster. It is going to be the best project ever. The fact is that finance knows, in some level, finance always knows that 9 out of 10 things that comes to them will eventually get rejected. And the fact is that reflects, that reflects in our inherent behavior. Like me also as a finance professional, if I see something which is non-viable, I would say, it doesn't make sense. And that's where this perception goes out that maybe, oh, this guy keeps on saying no, right? The point is there are two things to do here. One, have a template, have a structure in place which gives out an answer. And this is what L&T has done very beautifully, by the way. L&T has created one of the most complex project management softwares in the world, wherein you can enter all your data, all your details, and it tells you whether you have achieved a certain level of score to even go to the CFO's office or not. If you haven't done that basic due diligence, if you have not made sure that that has happened, and I have personally seen that tool, I can tell you, right? It works beautifully because they have more than 50,000 projects that come up and more than 2,000 that get actively considered for funding, right? So that is one thing. So take the I would say take the heat away from you as a person when it comes to finance professional, and say we have got a set of rules and templates defined which basically will tell you whether you are going in the right direction. So that business understands empathy. And second thing is, I think it's pure empathy, right? Yes, we will say no to a lot of things, but then again, understanding if the business comes to you because maybe they are losing customers, maybe there's something happening and they want something. So if we can't do it, at least hear them out and see what we can do for them in future. Honestly, there is no straight answer and there is not even a straight solution to this problem. But yes, using technology to templatize, and second is a little more empathy and just seeing it from the business perspective. Hopefully, if you do that, maybe business will start seeing things from a finance perspective, leading to better relations all around the company.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Resonates well. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we are at the fag end. If I can put one final question, and this is more for about your journey, folks, as authors. There are a lot of us in this group who are, just at that cusp of, hey, can we get started and write a book on whichever area that we have our expertise in? But there's always that starting problem, right? What is it that you would give us one or two tips to the, the first-time authors who are having that bit of a starting problem, and how did you overcome that and get started on this daunting experience of writing this book?
So I'll take 15 seconds and pass it on to Sandeep. Two things: don't overthink. One, we already spoke about it. Second is fire, aim, and no aim, fire. Right? Don't plan for a perfect script. I mean, the only way to, and I don't want to be a cliche statement, but the only way is to take action and just go ahead and do it, right? I mean, and reach out for help. You will be surprised how much people will be ready to help, right? Don't be hesitant to reach out to help. Take that leap of faith and go ahead. Over to you, Sandeep. We are in last 30.
Only two things, right? One, the actual book writing process is maybe 10% of the entire process, right? So you will face hurdles that, the entire publishing experience isn't the most optimized experience out there. So you will face a lot of hurdles. Be ready for that. More importantly, what I would like to tell you is that have the intent very clear on why you're writing the book and what are you getting out of it. We enjoyed writing the book, so we wrote it. There was no other reason, and I don't think we would have finished it if we didn't really want to do it from our hearts. So, when you are writing something, just be clear, right? Whether you are doing it just because you want to be a published author, or is there really a message that you want to put out there? If it is a second, you will overcome, because, there will be 100 times when you will want to give up and say, this is just, too difficult. I'm not wasting any more time, right? So unless you have that clarity in your mind, if you have that clarity, what I can also tell you is that maybe you would have gotten started by now. So maybe you have not reached that clarity yet. So, maybe work towards that first before anything. The publishing process is not easy. It's quite difficult and a lot more difficult than you now perceive it to be. But obviously, as Pramod said, getting started is half the job done.
Understand. Thank you very much. Thank you for this wonderful evening, and thank you for patiently answering pretty much all the questions that came on the chat box and also a few questions that we had. I'm sure all of you would have taken your own notes about and have your own takeaways from this conversation. A few things that I wrote down just to share with the larger group is, as leaders, it is very important to have deep listening skills, a very strong empathy for the folks that you're working with, be it might be your own team or it might be other teams where you're working with cross functionally. Crisis is opportunity, so grab on it rather than fret about it. Be agile, try to do things in a faster and quicker iteration so that you can fail fast and you know what works well. A few other things are, be a functional expert in some area of where you think your core lies in, and then learn to spread your wings to understand what else happens. Don't overthink. That's one of the aspects. Fire, aim, rather than aim and then continue to aim it right and then fire after a very long time. So a big thank you once again, Sandeep and Pramod. I thoroughly enjoyed reading the book. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. As you said, there's a lot of information available on cfoniti.com, which is also given us insights. And we really look forward to the next book coming in from the two of you. All the best to you for that.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the great audience. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Latha.
Sandeep.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Pramod.
Thank you.
Thanks, Latha. Wonderful session. Thank you so much.